Hello and welcome to the Collecting Heroes podcast. I'm your host JD, the collector of collectors, and this is the podcast where I interview pop culture collectors from around the world. Today, it's time to bust out your spicy pumpkin lattes and also get a bit spooky with my next guest. Her name's Taralee. She's from Ottawa, Canada, and she is a Halloween collector. Taralee, thank you for being on the show.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Here in Australia, we're not as familiar with Halloween. I mean, we definitely know about Halloween. We definitely have Halloween decorations and things sold in the store, but it's not as much of a tradition here. So I'm really eager to talk to someone who's grown up in a country that might have a little bit more of that, from Canada and the US. So as I always ask all the collectors I have on here, how did your obsession with this thing start?
Well, I always really enjoyed it as a kid. I mean, the dressing up part in particular, I liked being able to put costumes on and kind of go to houses and, get candy, carving the pumpkins, watching the mostly Disney Halloween movies. Those were the ones that I watched like over and over, like Halloween Town a lot. Also, Ernest Scared Stupid was another one that we watched a lot at my house, or there were some Goosebumps, Haunted Mask, like long episodes that I remember they would play on TV, and we would kind of watch that while we got our costumes on and got ready, and we'd break out the pillowcase to like see who could get the most candy, and we would fill pillowcases full of candy. I find in recent years I don't think it's quite the same as it was for the kids that are kind of going out trick-or-treating now, but like I remember we would come home with a full pillowcase. Like we would keep going until like people were shutting down and there were no houses to go to anymore. Cause it's like, okay, it's bedtime. Go home now.
I noticed you're wearing a Goosebumps beanie actually as well.
Yeah, I am. I still really like Goosebumps. I mean, obviously it's a little juvenile now that I'm an adult, but I still enjoy an episode here and there. I am kind of a bigger fan of Are You Afraid of the Dark? Maybe that's controversial. I don't know. But I found it was a little bit more like kind of like for in your teens versus like your kind of like pre-teeny kind of stuff. So I found it a little bit more scary. There were certain episodes when I was a little younger, like that I kind of went, oh, okay. I don't know that I want to watch that one again, maybe not. So, yeah.
You're allowed to like what you like. That's, it doesn't matter whether you're a 40-year-old man who collects Batman, We all have our passions and the things that we love. So that's pretty cool. I actually want to go back to, because I'm fascinated because we didn't really do a lot of this when I was a child growing up in Australia, because the tradition wasn't really something that it was kind of frowned upon in a lot of places. It was seen as that's an American tradition. We don't do that. Also, right here, it's going to spring, so it's usually warmer time as well, whereas you're going into autumn. So it just was seen as no one does that. If you went and knocked on some doors, people would be like, trick or what? Like, what are you doing here? So there's actually and I think it's probably the same there. If anyone is actually celebrating the Halloween tradition in the local communities, usually they will put some sort of decorations out the front, and those are the houses that kids go to. If there's no decorations, then chances are kids probably don't knock on those doors because it is seen that way.
Yeah, so usually there'll be like a pumpkin lit up or something in the front at least. Not everybody kind of goes all out with decorations, but like some will really totally light up their entire front yard, like just all of those like props and like things 6 feet, which and now they've got like the 12-foot skeleton from Home Depot. Like I have. They mostly were released first in like the States. So they came out kind of during COVID and there wasn't a lot of supply chain over here. So I think maybe a couple people ended up getting them, but I've finally started seeing them this year. Like there's a couple of families I've seen around that have like the giant skeletons in their yard. And now there's like a giant witch that's also like 12 feet tall.
Wow.
And like they're as tall as the house is. Some of them are taller than the houses. And they're huge. And I mean, the price of them is huge.
Mm-hmm.
But I keep kind of threatening like that, like there's going to be a year here where, because I'm in an apartment, so I don't have the yard space to have a 12-foot skeleton, but my parents do. And I keep threatening that, you know, one year I'm going to show up with this thing, right? Like, because we need it. And my mom goes, "Oh, do we need it?" Like, yes, we need it. We need the 12-foot skeleton. You
Of
don't
course.
understand.
That's your thing, right? Like, she should know that.
So totally. And she's very Christmas. So
Ah.
like she doesn't really totally like she goes along with anything that I throw at her. Of course, it's like, okay, yeah, we'll do that. There's been a couple DIY projects that I've done, like that she's basically done most of, because I'm not the greatest when it comes to sewing and stuff like that, but she is. So she will totally go along with it, but she is very Christmas. So she starts to get very excited as I start to kind of go, oh, like it's over. Like,
I mean, you say it's over, but when I look on your Instagram page, it seems like Halloween's a 24/7 thing in your household, right?
it is, yeah. So it kind of started a few years ago, and this wasn't even like Halloween necessarily. Like, I've always been into spookier stuff. I actually had a small business for a while where I kind of designed like spooky clothing, alternative clothing, and like sold it. But then when I kind of started working full-time hours and all of that, it was like just too much to do both at once. And it was either quit my job or, you know, work on the store. And I just kind of was starting to feel like it was too much for me. So I just kind of let it go. And I'm okay with that. I started like focusing more on Instagram as I kind of tried to figure out what I wanted to post about. And then I kind of got really obsessed with plants for a while, but realized that nobody really cared about that as much as they did the spooky stuff. So I kept the account, even though I didn't really have a shop anymore. And then I just kind of started posting like the spooky stuff again. And at the same time, my brother kind of got obsessed with like searching for VHS tapes. And we spent about a year and a half solid going to thrift stores, like looking for horror VHS tapes. And that was like all that we did in our spare time. And then through that, I just kind of started like collecting pops and like some action figures and stuff like that. And it kind of snowballed into like, oh, there's just Halloween stuff out here all the time, and it just never gets put away. And
It'd be
then,
hard to store that, right? Like, once it gets to a certain point, trying to store it in a cupboard somewhere, it's not really feasible.
right. There was nowhere to store it. It's like, I don't have, like, I would have had to get another apartment to hold all of the stuff. And then it kind of, I found for me personally anyway, like I already had maybe 15,000 followers or something like that. But then when COVID happened, like my content started to get looked at so much because everyone was at home. They couldn't do anything else.
Mm-hmm.
So we all kind of went social media, like, okay, let's do something, you know? And that's when I really started to kind of see people following. And then I started getting, you know, companies reaching out saying, hey, do you want to collaborate? And I was totally new to that. I knew it was something that happened, but I never thought it was something that would be something I'd be doing. Right. So at that point, then it was like I had my stuff I had collected plus other stuff that was showing up. And I'm going, okay, this is just going to be a Halloween home all the time now then. I told my boyfriend, sorry, this is what it is. We're here now. This is it. We're spooky. It was spooky, but not so spooky.
Yeah. Going back to the VHS tapes you were talking about, I did notice those in a couple of your posts as well. Because on your page, it actually says, what have we got? Halloween, horror, and Disney as well.
Yes.
So the different things that you collect and you're obsessed with. And then it also says, welcome to my crypt. So I call this the Bat Cave, where I'm recording from and where my collection is. So your place is called the Crypt, is that correct?
Pretty much at this point, in a joking sort of way. I don't really think that I live in a crypt. I don't think there's enough, you know, coffins and spider webs and stuff like that. Dead bodies, I guess. But
I was going to say you could change that, but maybe not with the dead bodies part. Maybe the spiders and the coffins. That's fine.
But in a joking kind of way, yeah, it's my crypt.
And the VHSs. So, do you have a VHS player that you watch them through, or is it?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I have a VHS player. And also I later on during our thrifting adventures, I found like one of those tube TVs that has the combo with the VHS player
Oh,
in
yeah.
it. So I have that I kept, and I will watch them on that. Just because I find they look better on something like that, right? Like they're not designed to watch on a flat screen, widescreen, 4K TV. It's just, um, so I just prefer the experience. Yeah, it's a really small picture, but
That's the picture we grew up with.
right.
Like for most of us, maybe not for the younger people listening to the show, but for anyone who's really over the age of, I think, 25, I would say at least, they they grew up like watching these small TVs. You had like maybe a 40 centimeter TV, in your house. As compared to now, and I've got a 55-inch TV, which is, I think that translates to like 110 centimeters or something around that. You know, much
Yeah.
bigger. Like the kind of thing that if you saw that in someone's house when you were growing up, you're like, you must be rich. It's definitely changed.
Yeah. I remember when because my dad was always like a techie. So I remember when he brought home our first big screen TV, and it was like it had like the speakers under the bottom, and it was like a
Um,
rear projection unit, and they were huge, like, and heavy. And I think honestly, my grandparents still had the last one that we had for the longest time, until it stopped working a couple of years ago. It was like going to their place was always like kind of going to like a museum at some point, because like all of the old stuff ended up there, and they would just say, "Yeah, we'll take it," because like we don't care.
yeah, yeah. I remember in my 20s,
So
I got a hand-me-down TV from my family, and it was, I want to say it was a 60 centimeter TV, and that was big. Like at the time, I was thinking, this is a pretty decent TV. Like, this is a pretty, I set it up in the corner of the room, and this is a nice size for me to watch my movies on. Like everything feels like almost cinematic. I say that with quotation marks, but I was obsessed with this thing. But it was so huge and so heavy. Just carrying those things around was so
I
hard.
still
Moving
have
them.
in my movie room, I still have like an older TV. It's one of the plasma TVs.
Yep.
So it's like a boat anchor. It's so heavy. And I was rearranging in here because, I'm sure you're no stranger to this. When you start to get a collection that's a little bit more than just a small collection, you're constantly moving things and
Uh-huh.
changing the shelf and putting things in different spots. I've moved the furniture and the shelves in here I don't know how many times. So, my boyfriend was at work, and I was like, I'm just going to move this myself because I just want to get it done now. And like I started moving the TV, and like I had to fully commit. It was like, oh, we're moving. Okay. It was way too heavy, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna like break the TV probably. Thankfully, I landed it on like some cushions, and it was okay. But okay, you're coming down now.
As long as it and yourself were in one piece afterwards, that was
We
fine.
were okay, but I had a minute there where I went, oh, what have I done?
It was at that moment she knew she messed up.
Right. Yeah, 100%. Like, we're committing now. Okay. Uh,
And with you're talking about like moving things around in your collection space. Have you found that over time now, as the collection grows, that you have a certain display style? Is there certain things that you tend to sort of gravitate towards displaying more than other things?
so I do have like my main room that I use to kind of keep most of the stuff in, but like I even have like my living room even has like toys out there. So I've got like a shelf that's kind of like Beetlejuice and Nightmare Before Christmas themed, and like that one has a whole bunch of different like plushies and stuff on it, and there's some pops and a couple of I found, I don't even remember who makes it, but there was like a bust. It's pinned to like my profile, like in the main pictures that are right there at the
Oh, you're
top.
the
Yeah.
Jack bust, is that the
Jack
one?
Skellington.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one. that one's like one of my favorite ones. So I don't remember who made it, but I think it was like a limited run or something like that. And I happened to find it used and like a pop culture store, like a local type of thing. They're not local to me, but they are within my province, and they're just, I think it's like a mom and pop shop type of thing. They're called Cartoon Kingdom, and that's basically what they sell. It's all, action figures and pops and some comic stuff and all of that kind of thing. And I just happened to see that they had that guy, and I guess he must have been brought in and like traded in or something like that. And I was like, oh, like I need that. But I mean, you don't always have the funds at the time to buy it. So my boyfriend surprised me with it for our 3-year anniversary, I think.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah. So he sits out in the living room so that he can be seen by everybody that,
pride of
comes
place.
over to do. Whereas like in here, I kind of have like everything else. Like there's like a bunch of pops in here and my movie collections in here. And I don't know, I kind of started with one thing, and now like I don't know what I'm collecting anymore. I'm just, if I see something that's the franchise that I like, then I buy it. Yeah, so pretty much all the toys are mostly in here. I have shelves like behind me. You probably can't see much of it, but like I've got most of my pops set up like that, and I'm waiting for one to come in the mail that's going to fill in that hole. But I'm kind of at the point where I need another shelf. Like these are just IKEA shelves. They're bookshelves really, but
they look like the IKEA Billy bookcases.
They are,
which is exactly a classic for collectors.
Yeah, that's
like,
right.
Especially with pop vinyl collectors, I think the Billy bookcases, and I think I've joked about this in the podcast before, is that I probably should try and get sponsorship from IKEA, because the amount of collectors that use their things.
Yeah. So I've got 2 of those right now. My TV is actually not even on a TV stand. It's on like I don't know how you pronounce it, calyx or whatever it is.
Oh, yep, calyx.
That's also from IKEA with the cubes.
Is that the 4x the 4x2, the 2x2 cube?
There's 8 total, so it's the
2x4. Yep. I've got the 4x4 behind me actually. That you can see in the background from me. This is actually the Kallax. Originated from another line called the Expedite, and so this is actually the Expedite. So this is the original before the Kallax. And the Kallax, they made it, I think, a little bit more slender on the outside edges. Maybe not as strong, I'm not sure, but they sort of changed the design, just tweaked it slightly. So this is the first version of that, but the cube size within the shelves is pretty much identical.
Yeah, so I've got like some VHS thrown in there, and then a bunch of plushies and stuff like the Squishmallows and stuff like that. And I've also kind of gotten into, like I said, it just depends on if I can find whatever it is in a certain franchise, then generally it tends to find its way into my shopping cart.
With Halloween items, do you tend to gravitate more towards things like ghosts or the pumpkins? Like, is there something, an item that catches your eye when you're in the stores usually?
So for me, it's I really like a pumpkin. Ghosts, yes, and I really like bats as well. So I kind of stick within those 3 mostly.
I like bats as well.
Yeah. So yeah, but pumpkins and ghosts are kind of almost tied for number 1. I mean, I'll take a coffin-shaped item every now and again, depending on what it is, but those are kind of my mains.
I noticed when you were moving to show me some of the display before, looks like you've got the Universal Monsters on display. Is that correct?
Yeah.
It looks like I think that's a Bride of Frankenstein.
Yeah, so there's those were part of a collaboration. They actually came in those, they're bendy figs, I think they're called. And
okay.
They came in those like packaging that like just kind of, hangs like, it's like a flat cardboard with the plastic over the top. and I kind of had them sitting in my closet because I was just not really sure how I wanted to display them. And then I kind of thought, you know what, like, what's the point in them being in the closet? Because like no one can see them in there. Like I'm just gonna take them out of the packaging. I know there's split opinions on that, but I can now enjoy them here, out of the packaging, and I wasn't enjoying them at all while they were sitting in the closet waiting for me to find a way to display them with their packaging still intact. So, yeah. So there's Frankenstein, Bride of Frankenstein, Dracula. They did Phantom of the Opera as well.
Oh, yeah.
Wolfman, Mummy, The Invisible Man.
Is that a swamp thing?
Yeah, yeah.
Nice, nice. Actually, I just watched the other day Werewolf by Midnight, the new Marvel show that they had on Disney Plus. Have you seen that yet?
I haven't seen it yet. I've seen it on there, but I've been watching so many other things. Like there's been so many spookier type of shows and movies and stuff come out this year that like I'm still trying to get through all of them. So I'm probably gonna check it out, but I'm not there yet.
So, did I say Werewolf by Midnight? I meant Werewolf by Night. I think that was it. But yeah, it's quite enjoyable actually. It only goes for just under an hour.
Okay.
Yeah, it's quite cool, and it's definitely like the same vibes, sort of Marvel's version of those Universal monsters as well. With the movies, like you said, you're trying to get through a lot of spooky shows and movies and things. Is there a favorite movie that you have as well from your horror collection?
Yeah, I tend to watch the same, like certain ones over and over and over again. I really like Sleepaway Camp. When I was a kid, there was a band called CKY. They were, the drummer was Bam Margera's brother from Jackass.
I know them. I used to watch the CKY, and Bam Margera was in the early 2000s.
And they had, there was the band. There was actually a band too, CKY, and I was obsessed. Like Bam Margera and CKY, that's all I would talk about when I was like 15 years old. Their lead singer, Darren Miller, was totally into horror. And at that point, like they had a message board type thing that you could actually go and like interact with the band on, kind of thing. Like that's not something that people do anymore, I think, but back then that was the thing, like message boards. You could ask the band questions. And he was totally into Sleepaway Camp. So by extension, because I was totally into him and the band, I was into Sleepaway Camp. But I really do actually genuinely like the movie. So that's one that stuck with me since I was a teen. I still watch it a lot. And another one, not really a movie, I guess. It's a miniseries. I'm obsessed with The Stand. The original.
Yeah, Stephen King. Yeah.
And the book too. I don't know why, but I really, really like it. The characters in it, like Stephen King has a way of writing a universe, especially when it comes to like people in a survival situation, where I always kind of go like that. They seem like people I know, you know, like.
Well, he's a master, isn't he? Like in terms of like horror writers, he's, you know, him and people like Clive Barker and others. They're masters at their craft.
Yeah, and I just love the aesthetic usually of like his movies. They're always in a small town, and like, you know, it's the town with like the trees on the road that line the road, and like it's just everything looks so like pretty, and usually it's fall because it's orange and it looks nicer, and like the town, like Derry in the newer like like that. I love that type of town. I don't know if that type of town really exists or if that's just cinematic.
Well, I think it's probably based on something, right?
Yeah, I love that type of town. Like there's something about it that I don't know. And they're always, Stephen King books and movies are always set in a town that's like that.
I imagine they're probably based on maybe a town he knew growing up or something along those lines. There's actually a series that came out a while ago called I think it's called Castle Rock as well.
Yeah.
Which is based on, it's sort of like smashing all the different laws together to make that series. Did you watch that?
I think I watched the first season and I didn't continue on with it. Not because I didn't enjoy it or anything like that. I think I was just watching so many different shows at the time and it kind of got lost among everything else that I was watching. Because I tend to, I don't know, now that they're streaming, like I consume way too much content, I feel. But
Yeah. I know that feeling. Even going
yeah.
back to talking about Marvel with the Werewolf by Night, the amount of Marvel shows that are coming out. She-Hulk's just finished. We had Moon Knight. We had all those sorts of things. So I'm always watching those shows as well. And there's just too much TV. I think I just started watching The Watcher on Netflix last night, and my girlfriend and
Okay.
I we binged about 3 or 4 episodes of that in a row last night, and it's so easy to get into a new series and you haven't even finished one.
I know. That's the thing. And like I'll binge it, I'll finish whatever it was, but then I forget that I watched it and like I don't remember until I see it on the front of like Netflix or whatever Disney Plus where it's like new season. And I'm like, "Oh, I watched that. Well, now I can watch this." But I had no idea it was coming.
Well,
Just
I
oh, it's
enjoyed
here.
Castle Rock. I advise you to go back and rewatch and maybe go through I think it went. I don't think it went to a third season. I can't remember. They definitely did a second season, but I can't remember if they got to a third season or whether they ended it at that. But if you're a fan of all the different Stephen King, different like movies and series and things, then it really ties a lot of those different laws together, and has a few of those aha moments with certain characters and certain places as well.
Okay. I'll
Uh,
have to check it out. I'll add it to my list.
yeah, definitely add it to your list. One thing I tend to do with some of my guests, and we were talking earlier about sort of the origins of Halloween. I've actually got a pop quiz for you. Would you be up for doing a little pop quiz?
We can try, but
That's
I
okay.
can't promise I'm going to ace it.
I tend to make these semi easy, I would say, like depending on the collector, but also there's a couple of questions in here that may be a little bit more difficult for some collectors or some people listening. But when I was even researching for this episode, I was doing some research on the history of Halloween and the different traditions and stuff, and was really fascinated by some of the stories. So I've put a couple questions in there, but I think some of the questions are also quite easy. And I think for someone who's a bit of a Disney fan and has a Jack Skellington, I think you're definitely going to get one of those answers right. So well, let's go through it and let's see how you go.
Okay.
All right. Okay, so it's 5 questions. Question 1: where did Halloween tradition originate from?
I should know this, but
We,
I
we, we
probably
actually
do.
spoke
But
about it prior to recording. Starts with an S.
oh yeah, Sam Hain.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Now, funny thing I actually found out, I when reading about it, I kept reading it in my brain as Sam Hain as well, but it's actually pronounced Sowen
Okay.
because it's the old Gaelic word. So and they pronounce things obviously a lot different. So it's actually pronounced Sowen. And yeah, it is an old Celtic festival marking the end of summer and the end of the harvest season. And that's what they used to do as a tradition for the end of harvest. So ding ding, you got the first one right. There you go. You already got a point on the board. Nice one. Going to the Halloween horror. Obviously, you've got horror as part of your collection. Who directed the original 1978 film Halloween?
I'm not sure if that's a trick question or not because I want to say John Carpenter, but you know,
Yes, that's correct. John Carpenter.
I'm so bad with actual factual information. Like, don't ever put me on Jeopardy.
Well, I mean, you've got the first 2 questions right, and also with Halloween, I think they did a reboot. I think it might have been was it Rob Zombie did
Yeah,
the reboot?
Rob Zombie. I think he
Yeah,
did. He did 2 of them. He remade it sort of, but I think he like added extra. You know, I've not watched that one many times. it was okay, but I mean, he added, I think, a little bit more of a backstory that was not really there.
Yeah, I've definitely heard mixed reviews. When I was researching this with the Halloween movies, because I know there's a lot of Halloween movies. From what I can see, I believe there's 12 different movies in the Halloween series, including those reboots as well. And then they've just had Halloween Ends, which I believe is the most recent one that's
Yeah,
just
it
been
is.
released, and stars Jamie Lee Curtis again, I believe as well. You know,
Yeah, I watched it.
you watched it.
I did. There's a lot of mixed reviews on that one too.
How? What would your review be? The spoiler free quick review from Taralee.
Honestly, I still don't know what I watched.
Oh,
Like, it was Halloween apparently,
but it
but
didn't feel like it to you.
it was really WTF to me. I feel I feel like they added some things in. They did some weird stuff. Like, I don't want to spoil it for people, but it's like I'm kind of going like,
Really?
what did I watch?
Yeah.
What did I watch? Like, I know a lot of people really didn't like it, and I kind of understand why. I feel like as a movie on its own, not tied to the Halloween franchise, like, it wasn't a terrible movie necessarily, but it's not what I was expecting. Like, I think in Halloween Kills, they set it up where, like, I was expecting there was just going to be like he was coming back with a vengeance, right?
And it
And
felt like more of a whimper. Is that what I'm getting? That's what I'm getting from this.
I felt like there was not enough screen time with Michael Myers in a Halloween movie.
Okay. Well, I mean that's a valid criticism. Like
Yeah.
he's the star, really, isn't he?
Yeah.
It's
So,
funny actually you talk about it not feeling like a Halloween film, because when I was actually researching and reading about the different Halloween movies, because I haven't watched all the different movies. I think I've watched one of the older ones when I was very young, and I can't even remember if I watched the whole thing through. I was a bit of a scaredy cat when it came to horrors growing up, to be honest, as a kid. It's only something I've sort of gotten into later in adult life and gotten into a bit more of that with the thrillers and horrors. But when I was reading about it, it's Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, which came out in 1982. And in this article, it says the final movie is technically the third released film from the Halloween franchise, but it's a failed attempt at creating a Halloween anthology series, and that means it has nothing to connect it to anything else in the Halloween universe. There's not even a Michael Myers. So it's
true.
quite funny. It sounds like they were maybe trying to set up something like American Horror Story, where they do different stories.
I think that's exactly what it was supposed to be, and it's too bad. I kind of wish that they hadn't called it Halloween. Like, they had just called it whatever a different name, and not use the Halloween name, because honestly, I really like that movie. Like, that
Oh, okay.
it's a good movie. So I really like that movie as its own thing, not necessarily a Halloween movie, because, like you said, Michael Myers isn't even in it.
But it's not really a Halloween
but it's
movie.
a good movie.
Okay.
It's a really good movie. Like, the masks that they have, there's like a Halloween company that's selling these masks to children.
Planning to murder every child wearing one of its
Spoilers.
masks using Stonehenge-powered computer chips is what it actually says here.
Right, and there's this commercial, and the commercial plays on TV, and it's got a little jingle, and they're telling all of the kids to tune in with their masks at a certain time on Halloween night, and then it's supposed to, like, kill them. The mask will, while they're watching this thing, but
but definitely not a Halloween movie, not a Michael Myers movie anyway.
No, but I think the masks, the design of the masks themselves, have become, like, really iconic in their own right. I see them all the time, like, within the horror community, and I actually really like them. There's like a pumpkin mask
I'll have to look it up.
Specifically, that I keep wanting to actually buy, but haven't gotten to it yet. Masks are not something that I've really gotten into yet. some of them can be really expensive, I find, if you're going to get like a really good one, which is kind of what I'd prefer to do. So I just haven't really gotten there yet, but there's a few that I'd like to get, and that's one of them. I really like all three, actually. But
Well, I've been looking at potentially getting a horror collector on in the future, specifically horror. And a lot of the horror collectors I look at, they always have mask collections, huge
yeah,
mask collections, and the busts, and in some cases they even have a 6 foot mannequin, dressed up as Michael Myers or
yeah,
Freddy Krueger or whoever
100%.
else.
And if I had more room and stuff, I would probably honestly get to that point. That's I no question. But I find I'm kind of I'm into horror, but I don't know what the right word is. I'm like a casual horror fan. Like I there's certain things I really like and movies that I really like, and those are the ones that I watch often. And I mean, I'll watch any horror movie, honestly, but like I have some stuff that I've collected, and I find I tend to have like multiple different types of things that I collect. So I don't really specialize, if you will, in like one type of
Yeah, yeah,
thing. Like
yeah.
I've got the Disney and the Halloween and the horror, and it all kind of just combines together, and it's
Well, that's
it's
the
a
thing
little
with
bit
being
of everything.
collectors, right? I mean, I
Yeah.
have you can see obviously I'm a Batman collector, and we know anyone who listens to the podcast knows that. But I also have Star Wars items in my collection. I also have Lego items. I literally just bought recently the Lego Bowser from Super Mario, the large set
Okay.
that they did of that, because I love Mario and Nintendo. I also just bought myself a Switch recently because I haven't had a Nintendo system for years, and I thought, okay, it's time to upgrade and get the newest one and start playing again. So it, as collectors and people fans of things, you don't have to be fans of one certain thing. It's not
No.
like you have to say I am a Nightmare Before Christmas stan and I'm just going to be obsessed with that and nothing else. I mean, there are people who are obsessed with Nightmare Before Christmas, but I mean, they also love other things, so it's
Yeah.
fine. But
Yeah.
moving on, let's go because we've got three more questions to go. Got a bit sidetracked there, but that's all right. You're 2 for 2 so far, which is great. And following on actually from something I just said, then in Disneyland, the Haunted Mansion during Halloween gets a retheme. What is the franchise that they use for that retheme?
Nightmare Before Christmas.
Yes, of course. That's an easy
I
one.
know this very well because every year I feel jealousy inside as I watch all of my American followers and friends get to go, whether they're in Disneyland or World or whichever one they get to go to be there for Oogie Boogie Bash or Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party, whichever one it is. I've never gone. I would love to go, but maybe someday. It's on the bucket list.
Have you been to a Disney park before?
No,
Oh, okay.
no. I live vicariously through everybody on the internet.
I did the same thing for many years. It was only my first time at a Disney park was in 2018. I went to Anaheim, and then 2019, my girlfriend and I we went to Tokyo Disney, and that was an amazing time. We're hoping to go back. We're actually talking about, funnily enough, for Halloween. We're talking about potentially doing Disney World next year, potentially in October, so that we can actually see the Halloween celebrations there as well.
Yeah, it's definitely on my bucket list of things to do at some point. It's just not something I've done yet, but
Well, I hope you can
100%.
make it there.
Me too. But yeah, no, I love like that. They do the whole park like spooky um Disney, and there's something about Pumpkin Mickey. I don't know. I just think Pumpkin Mickey is so cute. I could have so many Pumpkin Mickey items and it wouldn't matter. I would buy more.
And actually, funny story about Haunted Mansion and talking about our trip from 2018. My girlfriend and I, we actually did 3 days in park. So we specifically went to Anaheim and did 3 days so we could have a day in Disneyland, a day in Disney California Adventure, and then a third day to park hop between the two and do anything we wanted to catch up on, and or if we wanted to go on a ride a second time or whatever. We went on Haunted Mansion all 3 days, and every time we went on it, it broke down or stopped during the ride. So
Oh,
I don't know how often that happens to other people that go to the park, but yeah, it was something that happened to us every day for all 3 days that we were there.
well, I would hope that maybe they've fixed it since then.
I hope so as well. I hope so as well. So you're 3 for 3. That was an easy one though. I think this is going to be another easy one for you. Question 4. In the movie Hocus Pocus, what is the name of the three witches?
Well, obviously they're the Sanderson sisters.
That's
Uh,
correct.
Mary, Sarah, and Winifred.
Yes, perfect. Extra points for that. I was happy with the Sanderson sisters, but yeah, nice easy one. Nice easy one for you. So you're 4 from 4. You were worried about how you'd go. Number 5, I think you're still actually going to get. It's a little bit harder one, and for people listening at home, I'm not sure if they'll actually get this, but the jack o' lanterns originated from a different vegetable that was used before pumpkins. What is that
Yeah.
vegetable?
Turnips.
Yes, correct, correct. I was so fascinated reading about this. So I've got this. I've actually got the story here. Where is it? Of jack o' lanterns were not originally made from pumpkins, and legend has it that they actually come from an Irish legend. An Irish legend. I'll get the words out of Stingy Jack, and Stingy Jack was invited. Legend has it that he invited the devil to have a drink with him, but Jack didn't want to pay for the drink, so he convinced the devil to turn himself into a coin. Instead of buying the drink, he pocketed the coin and kept it close to a silver cross in his house, preventing the devil from taking shape again. He promised to let the devil go as long as he would leave Jack alone for a year, and that if Jack died, the devil wouldn't claim his soul. After a year, Jack tricked the devil again to leave him alone and not claim his soul. I can't believe that this guy managed to trick the devil twice. I mean, that's the devil's thing, right? And when Jack died, God didn't want such a conniving person in heaven, and the devil, true to his word, would not allow him into hell. So Jack was sent off into the night with only a burning coal to light his path. He placed the coal inside a carved out turnip and has been roaming the earth ever since. I was really fascinated to learn about that. And if you actually Google turnip jack o' lantern, some of the first images that show up are quite horrific looking.
You know what's funny though? I didn't even know most of that. I had heard the turnip thing before, but I just remembered it because I watched. There's a Netflix movie that just came out. What is it? The is it the Curse of Bridge Hollow or something like that? And in this, they're literally it's about Stingy Jack.
Oh,
And I didn't know any of that. I didn't even know. I thought they'd made that up. So that's funny because like he's a character, if you will, kind of in the movie. Like, and he comes to life through a turnip. They light the turnip, and then here he is, and they have the turnip. So I just thought about it because I had watched that, and they lit the turnip, and I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, turnip.
well, now you know the full story.
There
But
you go.
I was fascinated about that. And then it goes on to say people in Ireland and Scotland began creating their own creations of Jack's lanterns out of turnips, beets, and potatoes. So I was trying to imagine a potato lantern as well. And then the tradition traveled to the United States with the immigrants. But yeah, you've 5 for 5. Ding ding. Congratulations. You've done well. You've passed the pop quiz. You've made it through your first podcast as well. So well, let's wrap it up there. I think that's been a great conversation. Thank you very much for being a guest on the show. Love your Halloween collection. I love your page. I think other people should go and check it out as well if they haven't already. So before I let you go, let people know where can they find you. What's your social links?
So I have Instagram and I have TikTok, and they are both at Spooky Pumpkin Queen.
Spooky Pumpkin Queen. Nice. All right. Well, Taralee, thank you very much for being on the show. And any plans for Halloween?
Yeah, actually, I am going to. There's I guess it's like a haunted thing. It's called the Sawmill that they're doing in my town, and my friend and I got tickets to go to that. So we're going to dress up as ghosts and go to this haunted sawmill thing.
Sounds like a spooky time. I love it.
Yeah.
All right, well, enjoy and have a happy Halloween, and thank you very much for being on the show.
Thank you.
If you liked the episode, please consider following or subscribing wherever you listen to your podcasts. You can also join me on Instagram at Collecting Heroes, where you can see photos of the collections of the people that I'm talking to, as well as some of my own.